and welcome back to this Men I Trust review. The indie pop band from Canada with a really recognisable sound. So smooth, so dreamy. The type of music that sees you looking out of a rainy window, or perhaps you're going on a late night drive going nowhere. Starting out as a duo in 2014 with just Drago and Jesse, but things really came together when they brought in lead vocalist Emmanuel, or Emma for short. Her soft, airy, dreamy voice becoming the secret ingredient to their overall formula. Since then though, gaining a lot of popularity and traction, giving us a soft blend of synth pop, indie, rock and lo-fi aesthetic. All of this topped nicely with a big dollop of reverb. Equus Caballus, which is the scientific term for a horse, I think, and a follow-on from their previous release this year, Equus Asinus. 5 points if you can guess what animal that is. Even though the albums weren't released that far apart, there's a clear difference in style. Equus Asinus seems to be a tread in new territory, taking more risks aesthetically, being quite slower and slightly more darker in tone, while still clearly being a Men I Trust album. Whereas this new album feels a bit safer, a return to what they do best. What's kind of nice is they both have something different to offer, but I do find myself gravitating a bit more towards their later work. Starting straight away with those sugary synths onto Ease You, one thing I noticed right away is the production feels tight. To those understated drums, to the guitar and those spacey metallic textures in the background, all glued together by this plucky bass. And I don't feel like I'm being drowned or washed away by all this reverb. It's clearly there, but it gives way to other sounds that are there to ground you in what is essentially an airy track. Next up is Come Back Down, which is clearly giving me a bit of Fleetwood Mac here, especially with that bass line. I quite enjoyed this song, but my only gripe, and this is a real personal preference, and it's the fade outs. I hate fade outs like this. There are too many tracks on this song that just fade out. Just end it. Just end it. And those fade outs continue with Hard to See. Despite that though, you're introduced to some really interesting textures. The vibe slows down a bit. There's this cool, heavy, plucked bass, something you might hear on an early 80s track, paired with these bright synthwave pads and keys, which really make for a nice contrast. It then builds with some pulsating pads and synth horns. Still, there's something about this track that feels missing, leaving me with a sense of emptiness. Lyrically, the album is quite nice. I mean, it's quite ambiguous all over. There's a lot of interpretation and, open-ended questions and things like that. It's from here with Ring of Past that the album kind of picks up for me. It's really subtle, but you can hear that sort of analog fuzz on those glassy synths, and I love those sort of subtle unintentional analog sounds. But there's also this really nice bass groove, and I love some of the subtle panning on the bass notes. You'll just get one key that's over here or over here. Yeah, really nice touch. This track obviously isn't new, it was a previous single from a few years ago, but it doesn't feel out of place here, and it helps cement the album as a callback to earlier work. And the decent songs carry on with another stone. Starting with a beautifully detuned piano, smooth drums and ambient keys. This track actually wouldn't have felt out of place on their previous album this year, but what really stands out for me, and I really love the way they've done these overlapping vocals. There's something kind of magical, as lame as that sounds, about the way they intertwine. Onto another previous release, Husk, bringing this nice grungy indie vibe. The twangs of the guitar give this really nice eerie texture whilst keeping the energy up high. Whilst I don't think this track is bad by any means, it blends so much into the next two songs. Carried Away and Where I Sit becoming somewhat forgettable. That said, Where I Sit does stand out a bit more though, with the tempo uptick and the guitar sounding really like The Cure. There's also some nice subtleties going on, like the bell sound pan hard to one side, or that vocal delay just as the chorus comes in. These really nice small details that really stand out. But then you have the next track, which sounds really similar to Where I Sit, except it sounds a little bit thinner, and I'm talking about the instrumentation, and especially compared to Emma's vocals, which sound so full and wide. That said though, there are still some nice lovely moments. For example, when the music filters out and Emma's vocals are just floating above, as if suspended in clouds. From here to the penultimate track, we get a big mix of moody and upbeat beat, all kind of anchored by this hefty bass and guitar twangs. The songs individually don't jump out at me, but together they make for an enjoyable, cohesive stretch of music. Things take a small turn with the final track, Eris Wait, which leans slightly more jazzy. At first it sounds like there's no vocals going on, but if you listen closely, there's a subtle whispered line buried in the mix. Overall, it makes for an okay closer, but it feels kind of lacking compared to so much of the album. Ending on a slightly underwhelming note, we saw Equus Asinus kind of step forward for Men I Trust, but Equus Caballus feels like a step back, but not in the wrong direction. Familiar? Yes, but that's kind of exactly what you need sometimes. It plays to their strengths, gorgeous textures, tight production, and Emma's ever calming vocals. Whilst, yeah, okay, some tracks feel like they do blur into one another, and the fade outs become a bit of a recurring annoyance. For me anyway, I know that's a personal and slightly picky touch, but the album as a whole is very smooth. Something fans of the band will absolutely sink into. If Equus Asinus is a step into the shadow, then this album is a soft return into the sun. So with all of that, I would give this album a 7.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it very, very much. If you enjoyed it, let me know below. Tell me what you thought of the album. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Until then.